I've had a real successful career of not having anybody know who I am. It's worked really great.
Yeah, we're going to burst that balloon tonight, Bob.
Hello, Michigan music lovers. This is Scott Baker, musician, music journalist, and producer, welcoming you to the Michigan Music History Podcast, covering all the territories of the Mitten. We cast from around the block of the brand new Michigan Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in Bay City, Michigan, in the heart of the Great Lakes Bay region. And I'm joined by Michigan music royalty, sitting to the left and right, Dr. J. Gary Johnson of the Michigan Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and MichiganRockandRollLegends.com website, and Sir Fred Reif, Michigan music author, publisher, manager, and musician. Together they have taught, lectured, traveled, hosted, and have been quoted worldwide on all things Michigan music. Chances are you stood next to them at the record store or shoulder to shoulder at concerts over the years. They are the record crate diggers and the library microfishermen that have dug around for the details, the credits, and the lineage that has been part of the backstory of Michigan music. So grab your favorite beverage, hit the cruise, and take a trip back with us as we open up a can of earworms on Michigan's rich music history.
Welcome to the Michigan Music History Podcast Show, channeling through all styles and eras of Michigan music, from before you were born up through this very minute. And now, your host, Scott Baker.
Good evening, everybody. Hey, we are back at Studio 163 in Essexville, right around the corner from the soon-to-be populated Michigan Rock and Roll Legends Hall of Fame.
There you go.
There we go. A lot of different words to throw in my mouth right now.
You got to put that Legends in.
I know.
It's really important.
By the fourth episode, Gary's like, it's Legends, buddy. I'm going to get in trouble if you don't say that.
Right.
I got you, man. I got you. I understand that stuff. But we do got Dr. J back in the house for the second week.
Hey.
We got Sir Fred and Brother Alan, who's in the house. He's helping us with the coordinates here. And a very special guest, Mr. Bob Hausler. How you doing tonight, Bob?
Doing great. How you doing, Scott?
Hey, I've had one of those days where I've just been running into things here and there, but everything smoothed itself out somehow. So I am here, and I'm pretty excited about tonight's show. So everybody doing all right? How you doing, Sir Fred?
I'm doing real good. Went to a couple estate sales today and found a bunch of records. And
really? I saw there's sales all over town today.
All over.
Well, what'd you find, Fred? What treasures did you uncover?
Well, see, I sell a lot of ethnic records.
Oh, okay.
Bulgarian, Czechoslovakia, or Czech Republic, all kinds of. So, not your average rock and roll.
All right, so
record.
It wasn't the Grateful Dead and
no, nothing like that. A couple jazz ones.
Didn't find any reggae? Nothing that you were Sri Lankan or anything?
No.
Oh, bummer.
I did find a Martinique trumpet player album.
Interesting.
That's really interesting.
How you doing today, Dr. J?
Doing great. I'm loving this sunshine. Kind of felt a little bit like, dare I say, summer today.
I think we
great.
had early April there where we had like a week or two of that, and we were like, "Ooh, we can get used to this."
Yes.
I think this is the first day since
and I think the jet stream is moving north, so maybe we're going to get some more of this coming our way. I hope so.
Man, we can only hope.
Yeah.
We can only hope. It's been pretty cool around the Bay City area. We're getting back in the swing of things. There's bookings opening up. Bob, you've been out playing. Did you get to play last night? You said?
Yeah, I played at BMO's last night. It was really cool.
I've got some bookings.
I decided, I was going to retire last October.
How'd that go for you?
Well, it went really good because as it turned out, I didn't have to make any cancellations.
Yeah, that's for sure.
So that kind of worked out really good. But I got a text from my son a little while back, and he was like, he lives in Kentucky, and he went to a restaurant bar down there, and they had live music, and he was like, "Wow, man, I can't tell you how much that made me feel like." There's hope, and so I decided I should probably help in that effort to let people know that things are going to be okay.
Yeah.
Was BMOS your first gig then? Since you came back?
Yeah,
from
BMOS
pandemic?
was the first gig after the respite. Yeah.
And you had
Good people there,
Very nice folks.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good music spot in Bay City.
Yeah.
Certainly.
Nice stage.
Nice stage. Good people.
you got a handful of dates, or?
Yeah, I got. It's actually starting to fill in pretty good.
Really? Did you get Chamberlain's in the UP again?
No, I'm trying to stay local this time.
Okay.
I did not take any travel dates, and I don't think I'm going to. I think I'm going to try to stay right here. I think, that's what I need to do right now.
All right.
Yeah.
The fact that you retired and you're still going to play, it's pretty cool. You're staying local with all your dates. I mean,
yeah, I've never really done that. So,
right.
Most of my playing for a long time was outside the area. So, I'd like to connect a little around here more than I have in the past.
That's probably pretty cool for your wife too, who does all
who was, doing all the booking for like 10 years. So it was, that was a job for her.
Yeah. Well, you've got quite a resume of people that you worked with. I'm real curious because, of course, we try to focus as much as possible on Michigan artists. What you did with Larry McCrae.
Well, actually, Larry and I go way back. I mean, I probably was one of the first guys that played with him. It was actually him and his brothers and
the McCrae brothers band?
Yeah, the McCrae brothers. And I don't think at that time we called it the McCrae brothers band. I don't even know what title we gave it, but Larry didn't have equipment. So basically, I think I was in the band because I had the PA.
Sounds like you were playing the Bill Wyman role.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. So Larry and I have been friends since he was 16. I think when he first pretty much moved up here.
Your backstory goes before Larry. I mean, you have stories in the late 60s, early 70s. And when you and John played with me for years, I heard a few of them. And you guys, who name some of the bands and places you used to play back then? People love the venues and stuff. If you can remember it.
Oh, geez, if I can remember. I mean, what was the Establishment in Midland, and there was first it was called the Ace of Clubs, I think. Out on Bay Road, sure. And the On Stage and
the Scene,
and there was a place below called the Rathskeller, and
that was out by Delta College, right?
Yeah,
the Michigan House.
There was just I mean, every block had a venue. Yeah, when John and I played, it was a special thing because you could play 6 nights a week just falling out of bed. I mean, it was live music was king. I mean, and it, for a young guy, it was great because everybody treated you like a rock star back then. I mean, I was telling a guy at BMO's last night, I said, yeah, I can remember playing up in Traverse City, and there was like a couple hundred people came up and rented pretty much the hotel, and then we had to play in Toledo the next night, and those same people all drove down to Toledo and filled the bar up in Toledo. I think we didn't stay in Toledo. I think we all got a place back around the Detroit area, but it was an amazing time to be a musician, and I'm very grateful that I was able to take advantage of that, because I mean, I think it's a lot harder for young people now.
I'll tell you, when I first started playing this area, Swivel, yourself, Johnny Grudner, the late great Johnny. All three of you said at different times to me, you guys have it way different now than it used to be, because we used to trip into gigs, and gigs would be everywhere, every night, everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, if you were a bass player in the 70s, you know, you could do anything, because the gigs were just all over the place, and you know, it was an amazing time to be in the music industry.
Yeah, so many people I've interviewed and talked to would say, you know, they were making more money playing music than they could earn as a General Motors employee. By far.
Yeah, by far. You were making way more money than people at General Motors thought of making.
Back then you would be playing 4, 5, 6 nights a week, right?
Yeah, you could play if you wanted to. You could play 7 nights,
right?
You know, but most guys tried to keep it to 6. You know,
1 day off here.
1 day off. Yeah. Well, the day off wasn't really a day off, because if you wanted the more money gigs, there was a little bit of travel. So Sunday was a travel day. You'd bust down and travel. But there were a lot of really good bands right in the Tri-City area that would do house gigs. I was never a house gig guy. I didn't really do too many house gigs, but I knew lots of guys like Swivel. He would do house gigs, and I mean, you wouldn't bust down for 3 months.
Just staycation.
Yeah,
just jam there.
Yeah.
Now I know I don't have all your stories, because you only have all your stories, but I was lucky enough to hear a few. But the earliest story that I can pick out of our talks, from our road tripping, from our one-on-ones, was Glenn Fry. Now, how late was that? 69, 70?
It was probably 70, yeah.
Just before the Eagles, eh?
It's just, you run into people.
Yeah.
I mean,
that was up here, wasn't it? Didn't he come up here for a gig?
He was up here he had friends up here,
his family was here.
Yeah.
His mom.
He was hanging out.
Yeah. He did a gig. He needed to borrow your amp.
He borrowed an amp.
And that's where we'll leave it. That's where we'll leave it. Okay.
But you know.
No, I didn't want to put you on the spot. I know you hate talking about stuff, but you do appreciate your history, and I do want to say
I'll
that's
tell
the
you
earliest thing I can remember.
Oh, okay.
You probably have a lot more that you can fill us in on, but
Dick and
Dick Wagner. Oh, yeah.
I did the same thing for Dick several times. He would come up and always seem to want to borrow my rig.
No. And Wagner's, with him coming and going over the years, you got to come and go along and talk with him too, and have a little bit of a special bond with him, kind of like Larry. You talk to everybody. Yeah.
We our paths would cross from time to time, and
so you were out playing around the time of the Frost or the Bossman, or what would that have been?
I really wasn't. I guess, the Frost. I would have.
Okay.
The Bossmen were before me. I knew Dick from the Bossman, but more because he was friends with a girl that lived across the street from me, and my first experience with Dick and Steve Hunter is they were over at her house doing some rehearsing, and they stole my baseball bat. Because they're a few years older than I am, so yeah.
Oh my gosh!
So what year was this, Bob? Was this in the 70s when they were playing?
This must have been. If it would probably be around 68.
So this is when Hunter was in Detroit then.
Yeah,
about the time he got in Detroit.
Just about to join.
Yeah, I think he was just getting ready to join.
I'll be darned. And they were already hanging out at that point.
Yep.
That's incredible backstory, because that's something that Dick didn't even tell me about.
Oh,
I mean, I sat with both those guys one-on-one in the studio.
I don't think great. I don't think they were playing together.
Just hanging out at the same
But
house.
I just think they were just, musicians are a community.
Yeah.
And everybody gets to know everybody, and I think that's that's like my first recollection of them guys.
Everybody wanted to borrow your gear. How about that?
I had what I used then was I had an old Gibson amp, 75 watt Gibson single 12, and a old silver tone, the one where the head went in the cabinet.
Oh wow!
And I found a way to wire them together, and I had one of those like the Super Fuzz that Hendrix liked to use, and I had that all rigged together. It had a really super big fat sound, It was just the combination of the two. The Gibson was without the Silvertone. The Gibson was like a really pure amp. It didn't overdrive, even though it was a tube amp. It didn't overdrive very well. But if you wired up the Silvertone, which you could overdrive at about 2 watts, and then fed that into the Gibson, you get this big, rich, full sound. It was really cool.
Wow, nice.
Yeah.
So you must have been playing in a rock band in those days.
In that days, I was playing in a rock band.
What group were you in?
Oh, I have no idea what the name of it was. My career has really just been one where somebody needs somebody, and
you fill the role.
I fill in. I don't really stay in anything too long, But yeah, it was just I can't even remember, like the names of the guys from the first.
Well, you were just fascinated with the equipment and sound, basically, and
yeah, I just, it was just experimental. It was fun. You're 15 years old. You don't really know there's any boundaries or anything,
Right.
I came upon that totally by accident, the way to rig it up. I just started plugging in chords, figured, well, maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. And it did. And like I say, everybody kind of really liked it. So I was, a lot of guys were wanting to borrow it.
Cool setup. All right. So you were filling in back then. What was the first band that you do recollect playing with? Maybe Fred had seen you, because Fred went to a lot of shows back then.
Well, the first real, honest to goodness kind of gig was a guy called Denny Cox out in the Carroll area. I don't know if you remember Denny Cox. He was more
of a harmonica.
No, he was a keyboard player.
I was thinking the harmonica guy too.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I know who you guys are thinking. Yeah. Yeah. No, he was a keyboard player. And he's just a local guy, out in the Carroll area. But he had a house gig at this place called the Club 24, right on M24 outside of Carroll, between Carroll and Mayville.
Wow.
And he wanted a steel player in his band. He couldn't find one. And he helped a lot of kids that were kind of misfits, which fit my character. And he knew I played guitar, and he was like, oh, can you play steel? And I'm like, no, I don't know anything about it. And he's like, man, I really want a steel player in my band. And if I buy a steel and an amp, will you play it? I was like, sure. I'm 15 years old.
Wow.
I don't care.
Yeah.
I got nothing to lose. And it was $75 a night. And it was every Friday and Saturday. And I'm like, well, I could be working at McDonald's and killing myself for nothing, or I could do this.
Yeah.
So basically, he had the steel, and I would go in, and I had to lie to my folks. I asked my folks, hey, you think I can take this gig? And they were like, no way, you're not going to play country music in some honky tonk. My dad was a classical pianist, and he really looked down on the whole thing.
Oh no.
And so
Where were you at then?
I was living in Carroll.
Carroll. Okay.
My folks had just moved out to Carroll.
And you had been near Detroit before that?
Yeah, my family's originally from Detroit.
Right.
I was born in Detroit.
Yep.
And but yeah, so I every weekend I told him I was going to this drummer that I knew, Aaron Ruiz, and I'd stay at his house for the weekend so I could sneak into the bar. And it taught me a real important lesson about substance abuse, though. I mean, because I was 15 and I really wanted this gig, so I didn't want to screw up at all. And so I would just, on breaks and stuff, I sat behind the steel. I never would go out into the audience. And, I saw a lot of substance abuse, but I was removed enough from it that I knew that, it could really mess you up. So I never really got into that, where a lot of my friends, went down a really hard road. But that taught me a really valuable lesson. I mean, because of the way I had to sit there and observe things. And, I didn't want to, I knew if I got caught drinking or anything, I'd lose the gig, Right. I really didn't want to lose the gig. It was too good of money for a young kid. So, yeah. And I mean, basically, I did nothing. I mean, I hardly moved the bar. I learned how to make. It was a real basic setup. It was 3 pedals and 4 levers, and I just learned how to basically stay in one position and make whatever chord, whatever key it was I could find, and I just did the bare minimum, and I was able to keep that gig.
Wow, that's one I never heard. I knew you played every instrument, but I never heard that story. Oh.
Yeah, but that's how I got started.
Wow.
So that got you into country music a little bit?
Well, that was pretty much all country music. Yeah, that was really my first experience with country music at all. I had no experience at all. Not even listening. My dad, really hated country music, and so he. We didn't have any country records hanging around the house or anything.
Well, he probably didn't like rock and roll either, I'm guessing, right?
He liked it more than he liked country. I will say that. He was much more accepting of the rock stuff than he was the country stuff. It took him a long, long time to warm up to country. But then I got removed from the Carroll school system, let's just say. And so I ended up going into St. Peter and Paul High School.
Oh my gosh, I taught there for half a year at St.
Oh, no
Pete's.
kidding. Really? Okay, yeah.
What year were you at?
I was there like 73 to 76.
Okay, that was a couple years after I was there.
Oh, okay. Sister Allen still the principal.
Yes.
Yeah, she was great. I'll tell you what, I never would have graduated high school if it wasn't for that lady. She ran that school like a college, and like my whole senior year was just self-credited classes.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, all I did was I ran the newspaper, and I gave guitar lessons and did. Band direction at the junior highs, the Catholic junior highs.
And Sister Allen
she signed on off.
Wow. Okay, she changed a little bit from the time I was there, which was 1969.
Oh, yeah.
So it got a little bit more progressive over the years.
Evidently, because it was
good
great.
for her. Yeah.
But, I mean, that was the only way I would probably have survived, Mm-hmm. But yeah, that was a real progressive school. You didn't have the same class every day. You had you only met certain classes only 3 days a week. And, my senior year, all I had to do was hand in a thing of saying, what I was doing. And I didn't really go to a classroom at all.
Wow.
But yeah, it was.
Well, that was the neat thing about parochial schools, I will say, in the 70s, is if you had the right kind of leadership, you could do some kind of interesting things. Yeah. There was some freedom there that maybe in a public school system, just because of the way things were, you couldn't do. But again, you had to have somebody at the leadership role,
right, that was willing to
willing to go in that direction.
Yep.
Yeah. But I enjoyed my time teaching in parochial schools for that reason.
But that's how I ended up hooking up in Saginaw. There was a guy that was playing in some bands around here, a guy named Chris DeShone. You guys might know that name.
He lived down the street from me.
Oh, okay.
Well, he grew up down the street.
On Robinwood there?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, I used to hang out with Chris a lot. And anyways, he had a band going, and he needed a guitar player. So since I was coming into Saginaw a lot anyways, I was like, okay. So that's when I got out of the thing in Carroll and started playing in rock bands.
What was the bass player's name in that band? Because he was our bass player in the Tucker Blues Band, but I can't think of his name.
Man,
big guy.
There was quite a few different bass players. Okay. Like I said back in that day, if you were a bass player, sure, you had a gig. Because I know Tom Randall played with him in Sinister Footwear. I know
it was Sinister Footwear.
Yeah, geez, I can't remember there were quite a few different bass players. I'm not real good at remembering names because I sit in with a lot of people, so I move on kind of quickly.
You've been a person that's I must say that one of the reasons I wanted to have a show with you is you're a believer in the craft of the music, and that shows in how you've showed up to every gig and you've brought different style, different flavor, but you've always fulfilled a role, even including into your own personal writing, which has won a ton of awards over the last few years. But you're behind the craft of the whole music thing, and not a lot of people can say that. They're there or they're not there,
Well, I think that probably is my dad's influence on me. My dad was a really structured player. I mean, he couldn't improvise anything. I mean, but you give him sheet music, and he could play Liszt and Chopin, and so he really instilled on me that there is a craft, and you need to put some effort into it. You can't just roll out of bed and say, this is what you got. You need to school yourself. I mean, we schooled ourselves differently, but I will say, I try to study when I know that I have something that I'm going after. I'll study it. I try to break it apart and figure out what makes it work.
Oh, that's awesome. Right to everything you've ever. I met you during the Mid-Michigan Songwriters Guild, which we'll get to here in a little bit, which you helped form, and just helping every songwriter that wanted to come to these monthly meetings, or what we did back then. I think they were once a month, and you were all about let's dial it in. Let's write songs together, let's perform together, let's how about work? There was heavy metal people, there was country people, there was punk people, there was classic rock people, everything, and we all blended together.
Yeah, well, I think you got it right. There was people. It's weird how we put the genre first, but
the label,
the label first, but really they're people first, and then they've kind of drifted into a genre, but they're still people, and people all share basic needs and interests, and so there's some kind of a camaraderie that you can get no matter how far apart you might think you are. I mean, Lord Virgil and Laurie, musically they're far apart, but you put them in the same room for 15 minutes, they find everything that they have that they share, and all of a sudden you can make something out of that.
Truly, and we would. It was amazing. We'd break into those little groups, and
we'd partner up with, we'd intentionally try to partner people up with somebody that might not be their cup of tea, just so that they would understand the experience of working with outside their box, and I think you learn a lot from that.
Absolutely. And you got to play in Saginaw by the mid-'70s in your graduation time and all that. What was your next step? Was it flowing into Bay City, or did you make it out of state and start going on the road with a band, or what was your next moves from there?
From there, yeah, I did a lot of picking up, acts that were floating out, at least regionally.
And like who? Any names that people might know?
No, not really. I mean,
Okay.
just
jumping on the wagon here and there.
jumping on whoever had gigs.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we all know how that works. The names weren't important. That was the itinerary.
Yeah.
And then I floated down early 80s. I kind of floated down Nashville way and spend a lot of time trying to learn how to write songs.
Who was some of your gurus in Nashville that you flocked to? Who did you enjoy writing with, or who took you under their wing? Or?
Well, I did some work with Bernie Nelson, good songwriter, and there were. I don't really have names. Nashville is just a really songwriters community. I mean, if you're down there, you're hanging out with everybody. I mean, anybody that's writing at the time, you're kind of connected with.
And you lived down there?
I had an apartment, but I didn't really live down there.
Okay.
I lived up here. I mean,
Floated.
I went down there. I kept the apartment because I would have to be there sometimes. But the kids were young, and
You had your family by then?
yeah.
Okay.
And I didn't want to make a commitment to and my wife was definitely didn't want to live in Nashville. So I always kept my house here, and I would just go down there, and we would write. Larry Butler helped me out a lot.
Larry
I
Butler.
worked for his Universal music group.
So was Painter's Alley, was that going at that time, which was the big songwriters hangouts and people trying things out?
I used to play there. We used to laugh because you if you got a paying gig in Nashville, you were the shizzle, man, because everybody thinks that the guys are making money at playing in these little clubs, like Bootsy's place, and there was a place called Barbara's that I played, and there, if you made $35 a night, you were on top of the world, just because nobody got those gigs, it was,
Right.
I mean, so I hung out there quite a bit, and I was down there when the Bluebird first started.
Geesh, the original.
Yeah, the original before she sold it off.
Yeah.
I mean, that was just a really cool hangout.
Did you play the Opry?
No, I didn't really play the Opry.
No.
I used to hang out backstage with some of the guys there before it got too corporate. It's a much different feel now. I mean, back then, when Mr. Acuff really directed things, it was more of a musician thing. It was more everybody hung out and had a good time. And it's just the way things evolved. But when it moved out to
So you were at the Ryman then?
a little, I mean, it was just
Okay.
a little. I think it was pretty much didn't the new one open in the early '80s or?
I'm not sure.
saying-
Somewhere in the 80s, so yeah.
And but even when it moved out to where Opryland was, and he was still around, and he directed it to be more of just a kind of a hangout. When he passed, then it kind of all changed to a much more formal operation.
Right.
Is how I would put it, But yeah, if you knew somebody that was playing in any of the acts and any of the musicians, you could just go hang out, you know.
That's cool.
You didn't really need any paperwork, or, you know, you just needed somebody to vouch for you. Oh yeah, he's all right. And you could, you know.
Now, were your studies then, or your love of music at that point, really deep dived into the country realm? Because I know you did have a little bit of rock during that period. You came through some bands that did rock up here, anyway.
Yeah, you know, to me, songwriting's songwriting,
Right.
You know, and I think I was pretty involved in the Nashville Songwriters Association.
Really?
Yeah.
Did you belong to that guild?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you know, there were jazz writers, there were rock writers, everybody was in it. You know, I mean, it wasn't. I think people hear Nashville and think it's like, you know, a country thing.
Up until about 2005, everybody was, and then all of a sudden you hear all your old 80s heavy metal acts move there.
Yeah.
All your classic rock bands have now got establishments there. Bob Dylan's buying a brewery there or whatever, you know, and it's like now we got Nashville's everything.
But I think that's just the public has kind of become aware of it. But I think for a long time, Nashville has just been a music community.
Well, there was a lot of early rock and roll recorded there. I mean,
sure.
Elvis, recorded
No,
all.
right. All
Arthur
of it.
Gunn's about all his stuff there.
Right.
Roy Orbison, the Everly Brothers.
No, right. So it really isn't just a country thing.
Certainly not.
You know, I think that's maybe the public misconception of it.
Right.
But just a ton of great musicians that will play anything you want. You know, I mean, everybody makes a big deal out of, you know, Brett Mason's country picking, but I'll tell you what, I've played with Brett playing Freeway Jam and Jeff Beck and you know, and some jazz standards and stuff, you know, and he's a monster guitar player playing that kind of stuff too. So, you know, it's those guys, you know, they might play on a lot of country records, but doesn't mean that's what they play.
Yeah, truly. Now, did you introduce anybody from up here to the Nashville writing scene or the musician scene?
Oh, sure. I mean, that's, you know.
Yeah. I know Wagner got to be part of it for a little bit, too.
Yeah. Dick was down there, and, you know, they were.
Did you run into any Saginaw buddies or anything?
Well, yeah, you know, I always say that the funny thing is, you know, Jeff Wallakangas and Cliff Garrow, you know, from Romeo Ridge, I didn't really know them when they were up here. I met them in Nashville.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, when they moved down to Nashville for a while, and that's where I met them, you know, and I did quite a bit of work with those guys. They were fun.
Wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's Bernie. I met Bernie's from like Auburn area, but I never knew him until, you know, we were working on some stuff down.
Bernie's a fabulous writer.
Yeah.
Name some of them songs he's written that people know. He's wrote a lot of them so far. He used to come up to our songwriter guilds once in a while.
Yeah.
We'd have little sessions with him.
Oh,
Yeah.
Bernie's last name is what?
Nelson?
Oh, Bernie Nelson. Okay.
Yeah, at the time he lived up here, I think it was Hetherington, but you know,
yeah. Forgot about
his
that.
stage name's Bernie Nelson, but and he's now moved to Texas.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, but he, I, you know, his big hit was Daddy Never Was a Cadillac Kind, Confederate Railroad, but you know I mean, my big thing that makes him, you know, like the top of that pile for me is he wrote a House on Lonesome Road, which was Conway Twitty, you know, and they named, and you know, that was like the album title track and everything, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, that's like huge.
Oh, yeah. I know he was perking up the 90s charts on the country charts there.
Yeah, I mean, he's still, you know, he's still writing and he's still getting cuts and you know, I know, you know, like when I was working with him, he got a Winona cut, but again, I don't remember the name of the songs.
You just remember the times, right?
Yeah, but real good writer and real good, he, like I say, I asked him to come up and do some teaching and do some things, and he's always been there. And,
That's awesome.
Well, your bio said that it mentioned Merle Haggard and Willie Nelson. What was the connection there? How did you link up? Or
well,
a couple of country legends, to say the least.
It was just happenstance. I had done some stuff with Merle's guitar player Clint Strong, and Clint dad got ill, so that's the Merle thing.
And you went on tour for what?
Not
6
tour.
months?
No, not tour. I filled in for maybe 5 shows.
I thought you said you did like 6 months. When
No.
Well, that must have been a thrill to be on stage with Merle Haggard.
It is. It's a weird thing. It's you got a job to do. It's
well, sure.
You can't get in. My inner reaction with Merle was probably less than this.
Right.
You know what I mean? He was at the time, he was a very busy guy, and he had a lot going on, and it was a job.
That was in the mid '80s.
Yeah, I think the mid-late.
Because you said there was at one point one YouTube show that you came across, but I have never found it.
Oh, there is some record of it. Okay. But I don't like to speak of it. I reluctantly, would bring up anything like that because what I'll tell you I have learned is you do stuff like that, and then that's kind of everybody wants you to do something with them, not because of what you're doing right now.
Your association
but
with somebody
it's an association with somebody, and I want to be judged on what I'm producing, especially right at the moment. I don't maybe there'll be a day where I want to reflect on the those kind of things, but the way I see it is, you don't want to bring that in because you want to be, whatever you're doing right now. And if you can't do it at a level that it should be, you don't want to be brought in because, there's some kind of connection.
Yeah, right.
I will, and the Willie thing, that's the only time I think my parents were ever proud of me as far as my musical stuff. That my mom had a picture of it, and I don't have a picture. I don't have a picture of me with Merle either. I never asked for them to, that's not, but that was a connection from a promoter that I did a lot of fill-in work with. I used to do a lot of shows where, like, if Hank Thompson was coming through, he doesn't actually carry his own band with him. And, so I would just be the pickup guitar player. And so I did a lot of shows with this particular promoter. And it was at a time when Willie was still drinking, and the promoter was concerned about him making the shows. So I was, I really wasn't in his band. I was there to babysit.
You were a shadow?
Yeah.
You were the guitar shadow?
I was there to make sure that he didn't get distracted and not make the show on time.
Right.
That's
on just one time. That was all.
No, we did a few shows.
Did you? And it was Michigan, or was that why you're in Nashville?
It was in Michigan.
Okay.
No, it was in Michigan.
Okay.
Those shows were in Michigan.
Is that 80s as well?
It probably around that. Yeah.
So you
about the same time.
You were making your treks during that period, and you'd hop on those. And I remember you were Rose Robert agency you were into back then and stuff like that.
Yeah, and Bobby Roberts.
Bobby Roberts.
Yeah,
Sir Fred knows that one.
There were a few agencies working out of mostly Nashville offices. There's a few agencies where musicians can kind of sign up and you get picked up for these tours, short little tours, and you're not really part of the, you know what I mean?
Sure.
I would never say that, I was in that band. You aren't in that band. You're just a musician that they need for a very short period of time.
Well, just because they picked you, though, that says a lot. Of your talent, that you're playing with somebody that big.
It says you're in the right place at the right time. No, it really doesn't. My ego would love to say that it does, but really, it says that you knew the right guy, and he put you in that.
Well, but he had to have confidence that you could do the job too.
I think more, and this is for all the young musicians out there. What they had confidence in is I wouldn't screw it up. You know what I mean? I've told this to Scott many times. One of the biggest compliments I ever get is when I play with somebody and I see them a few years later and they don't know who I am. And Scott's like, man, that's crazy. What do you mean? It means that I played, I did my job, and I didn't draw any attention from them. I can tell you, you bring up Merle. I played also with Merle's son, Marty. I screwed up with Marty. Marty remembered who I was. And you know how I screwed up with Marty? We were doing a short tour, and I was really feeling my oats. And, well, I started getting some response from the crowd, and I went with it. And I can tell you, I remember this. When we got done, we were doing the autograph thing, and my line was longer than Marty's.
Oh.
I got a call from his manager the next day saying, "You will no longer be needed." And that's why I try to tell people, you don't want to play too much. If you're hired by somebody, you're hired to be their support.
Right.
When you're young, and I was younger then, and I didn't have the full grasp of this, but you're there to be their support. And if you take the light away from them, you're not doing your job. You might making your ego big, but you're not doing your job. Your job is to make sure that they go home going, that was a great show. And, I'd go back and see Marty, because I had a really good time. If they go home and they can't remember his name and they remember your name, you screwed up.
Sure.
It's time for you to get out front.
No, if that's your goal.
If that's your goal.
Right.
But,
my goal was always to just do my job.
I will say every time I've countered with those questions of to you, that you've always had a comeback for all of them. There's reasons for it all. Just do your job. Just do it and do it well.
Yeah.
And that'll shine through whether you're the front man or whether you're the side man.
Yeah. And there's people that I've played with several times that wouldn't know my name. Because that's exactly what I did. Came in, knew my parts, did my job, didn't do anything more, didn't do anything less. But you know what? They might not remember your name socially, but I guarantee you, if they're kind of around town and they need somebody, all of a sudden your name might pop back into their head. So, right. Yeah, as a musician, it all depends on what your goals are. But my goal was always to be the guy that nobody knew. If you can play and nobody knows your name, you did a really good job.
But you also came around and started turning that pen around too, and you became a writer, quite a writer, and you've had a lot of good chart in their own charts, as you've told me many times. Yeah. It's not just a Billboard chart, Scott. There's other charts, but
yeah.
Give us some of the favorite songs you've written and what they've done, or who've taken some of the artists that have taken them.
Well, me personally, probably the favorite song that I've written is called 57 Ford, that I wrote with a guy from Bay City. Marty Ertz, and it's that one nobody's recorded yet, except for I did a really
The Bob General
version,
the Bob versions. I did a crappy demo. It sits in a drawer, and I never look at it again.
But but I think that's a really good story song, and it really I was really happy with.
Well, there was a lady in Traverse City that did a little chart thing with you and Lori Middlebrook. You guys had a song.
You're talking about Cheryl Kay?
Yeah.
Yeah, Cheryl Kay Warner actually it's a song called That GTO that was on the Billboard chart. It was on quite a few different other charts.
That just made the rounds again recently?
Yeah, she just re-released it because, I don't know, it's been a while and she figured she could make a little bit more money off it. I'm glad.
That's cool.
I'm always glad.
I remember in the late 90s when we met up in the Songwriters Guild and Mid-Michigan Songwriters Guild in Saginaw, or we met in Freeland a lot too. That's when I first met Bob, and he was bringing that the writer's element and the musician's element right to the people, and we would do a Monday night once a month or whatever it was, and every once in a while you get a story from Bob like that where he's like, oh, by the way, Lori and I had a hit a couple years ago.
But you know what? I'm going to say that I'm just as happy that Lori recorded that song. Yeah. I think she did a really great version of it.
Right.
She never had the promotion, a record label behind it. But as far as the satisfaction is the same. It's you're happy when anybody records one of your songs. You can't help but be flattered.
Right, sure.
I just recently had a lady from England put out a song called "Make Up in a Smile" that was one that I wrote with Marty and John, and that makes you feel really good. I mean, so yeah, I've had quite a few people cut my songs, and I'll say that all the things that I've done, that probably pleases me the most. I think I'm, you want people to remember you. I think I want them to remember me as a songwriter more than anything.
You're the complete package on that, though. You've got, that's why I wanted to hear today. I know people don't know what we have sometimes in our state. And
man, we do. I mean, there's just some really great talent around. I mean, that's again, I was like, why do you want to talk to me? Because there's just so much out there that is way beyond what Well,
you got to be there too. Just before Wagner made his 90s comeback to town, Larry took off in England, and you borrowed equipment or were on a few shows or something, or both, back then too, during the Ambition and Delta Hurricane periods.
Well, I know I wasn't on the Australian tour because I couldn't get away.
Couldn't get out for that.
I really wanted to.
Did you do the tour in England?
No. Mike Brush did.
Mike Brush was on that one. Okay.
Mike Brush and Mark Miller.
And Mark Miller. No, Larry and I kind of
went separate ways
before that all.
Okay. Yeah. But you were. Yeah, I remember. There's this. He adores you too.
Yeah, I know. Larry's a great guy. I love Larry.
And then Wagner came back to town and set up studio, and you were involved during that. Yeah,
I did quite a bit of work with Wagner when he first came back to town. When he first came back, let's say that his reputation, he was having a hard time getting restarted.
Oh yeah.
And so I played keys for him for I don't know, maybe a year and a half when he first came back. And again, that was because I had the equipment. I never let my head stray too far. You got to keep grounded. But we, and Dick and I always had professional relationship. I mean, I would never say that we were friends, you know.
I gathered that too. Dick was like that with a lot of people in town, though. He'd know of them, and if he could do something with them, he would. If not, they were just another player like he was.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like a let's go to our barbecue afterwards and hang out kind of thing.
We had a mutual respect for each other musically. But yeah, I did quite a bit of work with Dick. You know, I really, man, he was such a talent. That, you know, I really wanted him to be able to showcase that a little and
get that second win too.
I was really glad that I was able to, you know, I never really wanted to stay with that. I knew that right away, you know, but I did want to see him get the opportunity to be in the public eye again. So yeah, I put some effort into making sure, and you know, I hooked him up with Brian Bennett to take my place.
Oh, and Brian was with him all the way to the end of his Michigan era before he moved back to Arizona.
Yep.
Right.
And man, what a great band.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. You spoke of Tom Randall earlier. Tom played with him for a little bit.
Tom played with when they did the Frost reunion.
Yeah.
Yep. But Brian did a fantastic job.
Speaking of the Frost, did you do anything up north with Bobby Rigg or any of those guys?
You know, I didn't really work with Bobby. I mean,
Dan.
I think I probably
or Donnie. I mean,
yeah, but I probably worked with him, but not. I don't really have recollection of it. You know what I mean? It was probably we were all there. You know what I mean? And I'm sure that.
Something happened along the line.
Something happened, but I don't remember.
I never heard stories. That's why I thought I'd ask him. Like, you know, that's a throwback. I wanted to ask you.
Yeah, we were all hanging out, so I'm imagining that there was probably a few gigs that I filled in for somebody, you know. But I did play like a regular gig with Gordy.
Gordy Gay.
Yeah, that was a.
And is it his son that's out playing now?
That's his son.
Yeah.
Yeah, great kid, man.
Yeah, great record, yeah. Good songs.
Yeah, he writes really good songs. Gordy was really gifted songwriter too. I mean, unfortunately for Gordy, he had, real mental illness that he struggled with his whole life. And, but man, what a gifted guy. Good singer, good bass player, you know. I wish that of people that I've played with, I always wish that I could have continued a kind of a working relationship with Gordy, but he just couldn't. You know, again, you have to be able to make the gigs on time, and you have to be,
right.
You know,
yeah, right.
And that just couldn't happen for him. But immensely talented guy.
Wow.
Yeah, we often wondered, that the Frost, they just seemed like they were the band out of that era in Michigan that could have been huge. You know, they just had all the elements.
They had all the elements, but they also had all the baggage, you know.
Yeah.
I think there was Donnie and Dick are a long ways apart musically. You know, Dick is very modal and very symphonic, and Donnie's a real blues player and a real core kind of guy, and I think that that for a long period of time that it just couldn't coexist.
Okay.
And that wraps up the first part of our interview with Mr. Bob Hausler. We hope you come back in 2 weeks as we offer up episode 2 with more details behind Bob's music history, his songwriting, and his lineage into Michigan's Americana, rock, and country music scene. We'll be back then. Talk to you soon. Enjoy your weeks.
Thank you for tuning in. Additionally, Dr. J can be reached at MichiganRockAndRollLegends.com. Sir Fred can be hit up at FredRife.com. And Scott through ScottBakerMusic.com. You can also search Michigan Music History Podcast on Facebook and YouTube. You've been listening to the MMHP in the 989. From all of us at the podcast,